Oklahoma City Public Schools is committed to making kids the nation's top priority. CommonSense Media is a trusted guide for the families, educators, and advocates who help kids thrive. They provide resources to harness the power of media and technology and to shape public policy to improve the well-being of every child. Here's the good news. If you're worried about doing it right, you're probably not doing it wrong. The question we want to answer today is, how do we use media in balance as a family, find quality content, set expectations around healthy and appropriate use, and raise media-savvy consumers and creators? We know you want tips and tools, and we'll get there. But it's just as important to have all the information. We will sketch out the children and media landscape and offer tips and tools along the way. But there is no magic bullet. Tech and media moves too fast for simple solutions. So though we will give practical tips, the overall information and framework are even more important. Since there's no research that nails down the exact right amount of time children can be on screens without screwing them up, we can use these questions to take a look at our children holistically. Basically, if they're using screens as part of their lives, getting exercise, eating well, and being social, things are in good shape. There are also some overall guiding principles that can take some of the worry and headache out of parenting around tech use. First, use and watch your child whenever you can. That way, you can discuss and explain things as they happen and connect it to real life. Plus, it's great bonding time. Also, make sure you and your partner are on the same page and know your own rules. For instance, can they take the device without asking? Is it their device or yours? Specific times and place to use? What about consequences? Have clear expectations, and you can even rehearse with little children. With older children, find or negotiate stopping points that feel logical and less arbitrary than time limits. Talk about commercials and their purpose. You can also play a game to guess what's actually being sold. Encourage creativity and not just consumption. Get children coding and creating so that media experiences are empowering. It's never too early to talk about digital citizenship, how to behave online, and what to do if something upsetting happens. And finally, be a good role model. Put devices down when your child wants your attention and follow your own house rules. Around age 8, children want more independence and start to develop their own relationships to tech and media. Instead of just watching and playing what you choose for them, they have more opinions about what media they want to use. Lots of children want to play things like Minecraft, Roblox, Animal Jam, etc. that are creative, involve gaming, and sometimes involve connections with other children. Chat can definitely pose risks, though really extreme cases of predators are relatively rare. More often, other children aren't kind or take advantage of younger children, which presents great learning opportunities, especially if children are prepped ahead of time. Tweens today aren't that different. They want the same things we did, only devices have altered what that looks like. They still rely on parents for support, but they want to try out their independence. Children start to develop their own relationship with technology. Usage of digital media increases, and their media use is not as closely aligned with their parents' usage. And this gap grows wider as they grow. Regarding children's motivation and interest in the various apps, this is a great sentiment shared in one focus group. Also echoed by another researcher and author, tech has become the primary place where young people can hang out with their peers. Children want to be on these sites because that's where their friends are. They are operating in a different context and the rules of conduct have changed. Ultimately, they'll never learn to ride if we don't let them, so we can be the training wheels as they get started. Worst case scenarios are rare, but we still need to arm children with tools as they interact online. And starting the conversation before problems arise is important to build trust and open an ongoing dialogue so if trouble happens, it won't go underground. In the end, we want them to be able to find balance and safety themselves when we're not hovering, so we have to help them get there. You saw some stats earlier in the opening video. Tweens use an average of 6 hours of entertainment media each day. That might mean an hour of social media and an hour of television happening at the same time, since a lot of media use is part of multitasking. But that number doesn't include time on a device for school. Research confirms what we assume as a gender gap among teens' online and gaming behaviors. Girls dominate social media, and though they are less active in gaming, girls do access games. In another report, 59% of teen girls report that they do play video games. Overall, though, while social media and gaming are popular, TV, videos, and music are still the most used forms of media. Does social media alienate children? This is a myth. Social media can strengthen relationships. It can be used to do good in the world, such as organizing around a cause or using an app like Sit With Us to be inclusive. Most children are just having fun. According to the Pew Research Internet Project, 57% of all teens have made new friends online. 84% of boys who play network games with friends feel more connected when they play online. And 68% of teen social media users have had online friends support them through tough or challenging times. So what are they using and how? Children are diversifying and often shift their use of certain sites and apps. A 2015 Pew Research report says 71% of teens use more than one platform. Many children might not be actively posting and sharing on some of these apps, but they are reading and watching what other people are doing. Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook are most popular, but live streaming and video chatting are on the rise. If your children use social apps, we recommend that you use them too to get an idea of what kind of content they're exposed to and the mechanics of the tool. Don't worry if you can't keep up. Knowing titles is great, but looking at key features of an app is even more important. Age-inappropriate content. Is it easy to find porn, violence, or substance abuse? How prevalent is it? If it's an app with a feed, you can get a sense of what people post and can try searching for different types of content. Public default settings. When you share something, does it automatically go out to all users unless you change that setting? Location tracking and sharing. Does the app track your location? Why? Does it share your location with others? Is there a way to opt out? Real-time video streaming. Is live streaming a feature? Why and how do people use it? What are your rules around sharing personal info and taking risks just to get viewers? Ads and in-app purchases. Are there ways to spend real money, and is it necessary to spend to get ahead in the app? Temporary pics. Is there a feature that promises that content will disappear? Subpar reporting. Is it easy to report and flag inappropriate content and users who harass others? Anonymity. Is being anonymous a big part of the app? Cyberbullying and negative culture. What's the overall feel? Are people on the app to have fun and connect, or to be cruel, rate others, one-up others, etc.? It's hard for children to think about their future selves before posting, so we need to help them. All of these impulses to be part of things can lead to some poor choices. Children and their friends often share and post before thinking of the possible consequences. Think of what people post as a digital tattoo. It's persistent and searchable. 40% of college admissions officers check applicants' social media profiles. The bottom line is, self-reflect before you self-reveal. Start with the device, game, or app itself. Discuss privacy and location settings, the importance of thoughtfully selecting privacy settings in social media apps, and how to be careful about accepting people as friends. Check your device to see how your location is being tracked and used. The apps themselves are one thing, but the people using them are another. We grew up with bullies too, but screens sometimes make it easier to be mean, and devices have amplified the effects and reach of cruelty. The Centers for Disease Control estimates that cyberbullying affects about 15.5% of high school students. For comparison, about 20% of high schoolers experience in-person bullying at school. As with real-life bullying, some children are easier targets. Girls are bullied more often than boys, and LGBTQ children and children with disabilities are also bullied more often. If your child is being bullied or facing negative online behavior, make sure they know how to report abuse in the app as a first defense. Peers sticking up for peers is the best defense, so whenever possible, encourage upstanding. Take screenshots and get an adult involved if it's ongoing or safety is threatened. If your child is the culprit, treat it as you would any other negative behavior. Give consequences like limiting online access and find a way to make amends. Students and parents can also use the OKCPS tips system by calling 587-STOP, 587-STOP, to inform the appropriate district officials of concerns and potential threats to the safety of our students and staff. Beyond bullies, there are other digital media-related worst-case scenarios we want our teens to avoid: sexting, visiting sites that encourage harmful behavior, and online predators. But keep in mind, even though bad things can happen, they are not the norm. Statistics around these issues vary quite a bit, so take them all as ballpark figures. 20 to 54% of teens have sent or posted nude or semi-nude pictures of themselves. Most sexy pictures are sent to a significant other. 36% of girls and 39% of boys say nude photos are commonly shared with people other than the intended receiver. 51% of girls say they felt pressure from a guy to send sexy pictures. Some teens visit Proana, cutting, and other self-harm sites. 9% of children get unwanted online sexual solicitations. 4% of children have online interactions where a predator attempts to make contact offline. As teens figure out who they are, they often run into rough patches, just like many of us did. The difference now is that social media can make these vulnerable times public. Some teens send sexy pics to get attention, but those pictures are sometimes shared, which can result in unwanted sexual attention, pressure to share more, and bullying. Talk to children about sexting before it happens, if possible. Let them know that once they send or post a sexy photo, they lose control of it, and enduring the social pressure to send it is far easier than dealing with the humiliation that can come if the picture is shared. For teens who struggle with mental wellness, there are some places online that can reinforce negative behavior, like Proana sites, that encourage anorexia, and self-harm blogs that show cutting and share suicidal thoughts. Keep in mind that though these platforms exist and teens do visit them, most find comfort and community online when they can talk about what's bothering them and get support, even from strangers. In terms of online predators, it's good to know that teens are often targeted when they post sexual content online, so talking to your teens about being aware of who can see what is critical. And then, of course, if they are approached and they tell you, get proof and report it right away. If your child is getting gifts, hiding online activity, and withdrawing, it's time to step in. That said, it's all about awareness rather than anxiety. Though it's unlikely and not necessarily advisable that you'll know every single thing your child says and does online, it's good to stay involved and have the uncomfortable conversations to help keep them safe. The best solution to cyberbullying is teaching children how to be good citizens. Digital citizenship is multifaceted and includes elements like safety, privacy, media literacy, creative credit, communication, cyberbullying, self-image, and reputation. You're already teaching children to be good human beings, but there's an additional layer to that lesson when children are behind a keyboard. It's easier for children to be mean or say things they wouldn't otherwise say, also known as the disinhibition effect. We want our children to understand you are part of the community, so be a force for good. In other words, think critically, behave safely, and participate responsibly. Schools can be a helpful tool in teaching children digital citizenship. Oklahoma City Public Schools provides and teaches the free curriculum on the CommonSense Media website, which can also be used at home. Beyond social media, there are other concerns. Research does show a small correlation between violent media and aggressive behavior, which is especially concerning when there are other risk factors like violence in a child's real life. Strong sexual content can also create a more permissive view of sex and reinforce sexual stereotypes. A child's body image is sometimes impacted when they're as young as 5 years old. We are ultimately going to be the ones who have to deal with the nightmares, worries, and questions when children see things they're not ready for. So prevention is the path of least resistance. So how do we combat the content we're concerned about? With younger children, we often choose content for them, but tweens mostly select for themselves, so the goal is to help them make good choices on their own. Starting young is the best case scenario, but instilling your values, watching together, and talking about the messages in media all help children become smart consumers. Parents have to model how they want devices used and stick to the rules themselves. Parents spend 9 hours and 22 minutes with screen media daily, including for personal and work use. 7 hours and 43 minutes of that time is devoted to personal screen time. Tweens spend an average of 6 hours per day, and teens an average of about 9 hours per day on screens. Children are highly skilled when it comes to sniffing our hypocrisy, and tweens are especially good at calling out their parents, so modeling the behavior you want to see is your first priority. If you are setting solid standards but don't like what your child is doing, monitoring their media use is the next step via device-free zones and times. Think limits, not lectures. Communicate, don't corner. And since we want to teach our children to make positive choices when they are on their own, it's time to start stepping back and mediating rather than jumping in every time there's an issue. It's important for the whole family to follow the same rules. First, get on the same page with your partner. Having a unified front is important or your children will play you. Agree as much as possible about how much, what, and where children can use media. Let the limits be known and the possible consequences. Also, let your child know you're there to help them with problems, not get them in trouble or catch them doing something wrong. Set it up as a team instead of us versus them. Set times and places in the house where devices aren't allowed. Most important, keep devices out of the bedrooms as much as possible, as it can disturb sleep and make it harder to regulate use. CommonSense Media has resources, and you can check out the Family Media Plan on their website, healthychildren.org. Parents usually want to know how to monitor phone use and shut it all down when things get really dicey. Generally, we don't recommend full monitoring because inevitably children find ways around the software and devices we use, open new accounts, or restrict access to parents. While spot checks allow for some freedom and privacy that tweens and teens need, full monitoring can drive unwanted behaviors underground and set up an us versus them dynamic. Instead, we want our children to know we just want to help and be there when they need us. Ultimately, the more children can regulate themselves, the better. They have to fall to learn to ride, and we can be there to help them try again. Make sure your children know that we all make mistakes, and it can feel like the world is ending, but it's not. Parents are there to help, not to bust. Instead of shutting it all down, consider making media content and use a part of your relationship so that it's less a matter of control and more of an ongoing conversation. Set expectations as early as possible around content, balance, media-free zones, etc. Adjust as necessary and keep the lines of communication open. Have clear consequences for not meeting expectations, just as you would with other rules. Have fun together. Media use can be a way to bond, share news, and enjoy spending time together. Find ways to focus on the positive and guide your children through the potential negatives. CommonSense Media has a great website full of free content, including media reviews for movies, books, TV shows, video games, and apps. They also have lots of parent advice and lists that they've curated, so you can find exactly what you need. You got this! Don't forget that we are all in the same boat trying to navigate through these shifting challenges. In the end, it comes down to parenting basics. There's no one right answer, and you know your child best. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. It is the mission of Oklahoma City Public Schools to ignite a passion for learning in every child, invite families to engage, and inspire respectful and trusting relationships with our diverse community.